One second, just give me a moment. I don't know why, but everything around me seems to be tricolored. The flag of India has always been tricolored. The map of India during the times of COVID, tricolored. Red zone, orange zone, green zone. The mindset of the people in Chennai, actually tricolored. Black, white, and a lot of gray. But actually, this month of June is a colored month. It's got so many bright colors. To be a bit more specific, it's got all the rainbow colors because this month is the Pride month. I do believe a lot of us have actually misunderstood what the Pride month is all about. To make it a lot more simpler, the Pride month is basically a month for self love. It is realization of oneself, respect, and also understanding and equality for one and all. This month, there is one community, the LGBT, that makes a lot of noise, but this time the noise is for the right reasons. Whether it's for law, whether it's for love, whether it's for the right, whether it is for oneself. We talked to someone today who will have a great impact on what the Pride Month is all about, the experience and the evolution. Much more importantly, I know him basically as one of India's finest fashion choreographers, but today he speaks as a voice and an activist of the LGBT community. Please welcome Mr. Sunil Menon. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, what's up? How are you?
Hello. This is fun for me because I'm not technologically with it like all you youngsters. So, yes,
No, that's
let's
fine.
go.
That's fine. You are ahead of time. You're ahead of ideas in terms of fashion industry. You've done so much. But before that, I must tell you something. I still remember the days, Sunil. As a young college boy, I came to you. You know, I want that one ramp show. I want to be a model in the advertisements. Things have changed. Look where I am, and your career has gone on to wonderful heights. But one thing has not changed, Sunil, and that is the way you look. I mean, you haven't aged one bit. You are young as forever. How's that? What is that secret? Please tell me. No stress, no tension, too much of love. What's the secret?
Well, true. It's how you choose to live your life. And being Pride Month, I've always chosen to live the way I want to, truthfully. I wanted to be me and not be cowed down and pressurized to behave a certain way, look a certain way, and be what society or family expects me to be. And I think that's the message, that we want everyone to be accepted the way they are and to live your truth. That's the thing.
But they say truth is a very easy word to say, but a very courageous act to imply in life. So let's talk a bit firstly about Pride Month. Now, in Chennai, if I'm right, it's been about 12 years since this month is celebrated with all right vigor and, a nice message. Can you tell me a bit about, how it's evolved from 12 years back till today in terms of its openness, in terms of the activity, in terms of togetherness, and in terms of respect and celebration?
So, yeah, 10, 12 years ago when we first had a Pride rally, it was on the Marina Beach, and we got permission to do a rally then on Marina. And to our surprise, we had a lot of supporters come forward. There were allies and friends who came for the rally. It was such an eye-opener because we see Chennai traditionally as a very conservative city, not very vocal and proactive in all these issues. So finally, when we did it, I mean, with a lot of trepidation, like we're not sure where we're going to go with this rally. And then that kind of gave us the strength to continue every year. But unfortunately, along the years, the rally has been moved from the beach, like it's a political reason that no rallies or exhibitions or anything can be held on the beach. I understand why, because environmentally it's disastrous and messy. So we moved to a space near Rajaratnam Stadium in Egmore, where we used to do the rallies, and it's a cultural pageantry where art forms, the talent of the communities, displayed. There's a lot of fun and dances and cultural events that happen. So people used to come there to watch, and we chose. We were given that space, and within that space, we tried to make the maximum of it and see how much. And trust me, the media has been amazing with us. My journey, if I look at it, the media has been so supportive, been very proactive and sensitively portraying and reflecting our stories, our issues. And I think that's where the success lies in the movement, because we had strong allies,
Yeah.
very good allies
Yeah.
who, held our hands along this journey. And it would be unfair to not even acknowledge these allies.
Absolutely. They always say it requires a broad mind, an open mind, but I believe in this case it requires a big heart as well to understand what people are feeling, to reciprocate, to give a sense of dignity, equality, and righteousness to live the life that you want to live requires a big heart. So tell me, I mean, this year is not just another year. This is a COVID year. 2020 is not another year. So how have you all celebrated? I see a lot of online activity and celebrations and still a strong sense of communication amongst the communities. Okay, tell me a bit about celebration during the COVID crisis.
So I think we had to be a lot more creative this time, and see that even though we're restricted to online platforms where we can, showcase what we do every year and be a little more interactive. Of course, the only aspect for me that was missing is that we don't reach out to the aam janta, to the regular person on the streets, because if they don't have a smartphone, they don't have that connectivity to the internet, then they're going to miss out on what was happening online. So that's where media comes in, and they take that story to the masses, to the public, and I think over the years that's what's happened. This year, of course, there have been a lot of online activities that are happening, and everyone's just trying to be as creative as possible. I'm stuck in Kerala, so it's just that they call up, they pick my brains and say, okay, well, shall we do this? Shall we do that? I said, okay, fine. I mean, just go ahead.
Sunil, with all due respect, you're not stuck in Kerala. You're enjoying in Kerala. We are stuck in Kerala. That's the truth, if I may use these words. But okay, let's come to the journey, because the destination that you all are at today is courtesy of very, very hard-fought journey. Let's not forget where this comes from. And when they decriminalize, I think it's such a strong word, decriminalize, but that's the legal term that they use, Section 377. Now, there are two sides to look at this. One is by law, one is by love, right? So tell me, how important was, decriminalizing Section 377 and the kind of response that you have got within the community, the change that people have come out and spoken, because now you are legally all right, number one, and also society, the way they've changed their outlook. How has this journey been on the outward?
Coming from Chennai, I'm a true blue Chennai, because I've spent my whole life there, literally, and never did I think that this would come to a place where I would see the legalization and the freedom that we now are able to access and live. The kind of freedom, because I'm 54, 52 years of my life. Being LGBT is was like you said, decriminalized.
Sorry, but are you really 54?
Yeah, I'm 54. I just completed 54. So that's, for me, it was a very emotional moment, because my work started way back in '92, working around sexuality and sexual health, and looking at how far we've progressed. There were times when I really thought I'm going to just, give up, and I can't do this anymore. The stress and, the emotional was extremely draining on the team, just to keep going, just constantly not give up and just say, this is something that we have to really fight for. Even if I didn't live to see this day, at least the next generation would have had it much easier. And I think that's what Pride also focuses on, and we highlight the journey, because nowadays, like you said, from 2 years now, everybody's out and open and happy, and they can express themselves, but they should not forget where we came from. That is something that I always constantly remind. The freedom that we got is fought for. It never came to us on a platter. And this generation should remember that this is something that they have to pay attention to and give credibility, because they can't come and say, like, now it's so easy. It's so much easier than it was before. But at the same time, what I have to add is, even though the law has changed, mindsets will take time to change. So we've had so many laws in place, but still dowry is an issue, rape is an issue. Despite having all these laws, the loopholes, people still can overlook those, and go through them and make life miserable for a lot of people, which is still happening. But at least it's such a relief to say that at least I don't have to live like a criminal. I'm no longer criminalized for being honest to myself, living my truth, and being with this person that I want to be. As long
Right.
as, like the law says, it's both of us are adults.
Yeah, yeah. You've just
Yeah.
expressed yourself. You've expressed who you are. And if you have to define this freedom, it's the simple freedom to express yourself. That's all. That's the fight. And
It is for me, the freedom to live your truth. That's how I would put it. To live your truth. You decide, you realize who you are, and you have the courage and support system in place to live that truth. Because all of us are not as lucky as I am. Most of us live in fear. There are issues of being evicted from the places that you live in. School and colleges, you may not be able to complete your education because you are different, you're seen differently. Employment is an issue. So all these come into a hand, into the picture. It's easy to say, yes, 2 years ago we decriminalized 377. It's much easier, but the reality is it's easier to live like who you want to be and who you really are, but also to be practical and see that we still have a long journey ahead in changing the mindset of making people accept us. We were lucky. I think I'm lucky because Chennai has always been a very tolerant city.
correct.
Can live and let live. And that's something that's amazing about the city that I come from. And I feel that that's something that helped me be who I am. Even though the law was against us, there was space for all of us, and I think that was the beauty of the city. And I think if you look at most other cities also, this is something that is happening across the big metros. It is now for us to take this to the rural and semi-rural areas, because then that is where the work is now. Cities, we've already been there, we've done that. We have media covering it. We've reached out to most of the people. And once you live in a metro, your mindset changes. You see so many different things at the same time. So you learn to accept and live with the changes that's around you. But if you go into a rural setting, they're still stuck in a time zone where it's very hard for them to change, modernization.
That's where education, exposure, talking, listening, discussing, and debating, this matters at that point of time. But Sunil, as you said, if the people of India or people around the world, they have to choose between love and have to choose between law, they will still choose love. Love is always above law, according to me and a lot of people as well. But like you said, this is a journey on the outside, Sunil. This is a journey that you fought for the people, you have fought against society, but the journey within, the fight within, is a lot more difficult. When you go and tell, you realize your sexuality might be different from the majority of them. You go and tell your parent, you go and tell your sibling, you go and tell your family member, you go and tell your friend. The response you get might be such a sense of self-doubt. So tell me about your journey within, the fight that you have to come to terms with. Can you give me a bit of that in terms of realizing oneself and expressing oneself?
I see that it's very hard for me to talk about other people because I think my journey was a lot much easier because I come from a family that's more cosmopolitan. I have relatives all over the world. We've traveled. So, there's a lot more broad-minded and accepting. So for me, coming to terms with my sexuality was not as tough as my other colleagues and friends have gone through. So the acceptance for me, the fact that I was technically I am, if I look at it, the first person to come out openly in the media and talk about sexuality, and I could do that because I had the confidence that my family was behind me, If you don't have that, it absolutely. Today I'm where I am because of my family. My family stood by me, and also we come from a different generation. My parents were much older, so for them to wrap their head around sexuality, to understand it, is difficult. But the fact is, they just accepted me the way I was, no questions asked, and then they let me be. And I think that was the biggest blessing in my life, that I could pursue whatever career I wanted. I could live the life I wanted, and they didn't interfere or ask me questions. They just felt that my happiness at the end is most important.
So have you and your support system actually tried to speak to the family, speak to parents, and understand that this is a lot more, it's a common thing and people should be ready to accept it?
So we do family counseling where we bring the child, the person from the community with the parents to a counselor. And the thing is, what I specifically did was, I didn't make the counsel. I didn't get a counselor from the community, because if the counselor was LGBT, they'd say, "Ha, you're only talking on your behalf," you know.
Exactly.
So I got a trained, very senior professional counselor. Is a woman. She's a very close friend of ours called Magdalene, and she runs a center for counseling. And what we did is, we used to take the families there, away from the NGO, away from all the other LGBT setup, very neutral setting, and you had a very neutral kind of person sitting there and talking them through the process. That was what was successful. That was what really worked for us, because then you had somebody who was an ally and who held your hand and who did the work that we could technically do, but ours would be seen as the biased perception and intervention.
You want the neutral side to take the call, and then you will accept it. That's the way society runs, isn't it?
Yes.
Sunil, you've dealt with people not just in India, urban and rural. You've dealt with people across the world. So is India's mindset not up there, or is the world thinking alike like the way India is, or have you seen the transformation of the way India approaches the LGBT community? How do you see India compared to the world in this case?
See, India has made so much progress that I am so happy, to even speak to you now, because, 20 years ago, I never dreamt I'd be on, doing live interviews, talking to the media, being open about myself. This is 20 years ago. That was the scenario. So I look at it now, so much better. And in fact, I've had a lot of international scholars researchers come to India and talk to us, and they say the trans community has it much better in India than abroad, because LGB, they're okay with LGB, but trans is a big issue. Especially if you look at America, the highest number of trans murders that have happened over the past few years has been in America. Regular lynching and murdering of trans people in America, and it's very scary. And to think America is so broad-minded and open-minded, and then you go there, it's only in the cities. If you go into rural places in America, it's very Christian, very Orthodox, very conservative. So for children growing in those towns, they all move out. Everyone's moving to the big cities. So the LGBT community presence is always in a big metro. It's never in a suburban small town. And I've been to America, I've traveled across America, and there were times when I felt visibly uncomfortable about my sexuality there. And I used to think, America is the place that I want to live in because I can be myself. I was scared to live in India as an openly gay man, and all that has changed. It just turned on its head. I went abroad and I said, it's no different. It depends on which part of the city you're in.
It may be worse there, and India has developed pretty well. But
I think the issue is, in media, we see only the success stories. We see only the good part. India, we always highlight the bad part. If you abroad, media is always negative about India. India's like this, poor, dirty, all that. They don't see the good side. They pick on whatever is bad. But in America, you only pick on what is good. Now, just look at all the lynching and murders and all that racism that's happening there. It's coming out now only because of social media. If not, it was completely under the ground.
We never know. Correct. But I'm glad to hear this, that India is in a better spot compared to different parts of the world. But there's always a scope, and you know it better than anyone else, that there's a chance for us to get much better if we educate and spread a vibe in school itself. I think talking about this at the young level is very, very important. So if I was to ask you as to what we can do to ensure that it's a big mind, open mind, knowledgeable mind, and a big heart as well, would you say that we need to tap the school where all this has to be spoken about?
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the issues that has come up strongly in a recent study that we did in Tamil Nadu, that we had 1 out of 3 trans person studying in an educational institution, especially school or college, who's faced sexual harassment and had to drop out. And today we see trans people as sex workers, as begging and doing other, living on the periphery. Is because they don't have the basic skills to survive. And we don't give them the opportunity to complete their education and get a good job. So today, MNCs are coming up and opening up and saying, yes, we're willing to give your trans people work. But the issue is they're not qualified enough to fill those posts. And it is for us to make sure that they reach that space, they reach that position where they can they can be absorbed into a large company. So here the trick, now the main issue is, if educational institutions, it's a must, that they have to sensitize and train teaching, non-teaching staff in every institution, that when they see cases of bullying and harassment happening among the children, they have to intervene right there. And to say that it's not okay, this is not allowed, that every child is equal and the same. And if that message is out there, then the child feels safe to complete their education. Children are dropping out alarmingly from high school. Some don't complete even high school. So at least if they reach college, then I can push them and say, okay, there are graduates here, let's give them some opportunity. So when the survival skills are so limited.
If I can just be a bit more upfront, what you want is basically not a sense of partiality. All you want is equality. That's right.
Absolutely. That, how can a teacher, discriminate against a child just because he or she is perceived as non-gender conforming? So a boy doesn't behave like a boy, girl doesn't behave like a girl, and then they pick on the child, they make fun of the child. So when the teacher or a non-teaching staff, a senior person does it, you're telling the other children it's okay, this is not acceptable, this child is weird, different, whatever. So the child gets constantly picked on.
But, as we grow, there are practical day-to-day difficulties, which I understand. You will be able to give me a right direction on it. When it comes to a community like this, is it a bar when it comes to adopting a child, buying a house, getting a loan, the right to marry? These are all simple, basically very, very fundamental laws that any human being can be, accessible to. But do you think there are certain nuances that need to be changed, or certain rights that you all are being not given?
So these are issues that came up during a lot of discussions that we had internally, that these are issues we need to address. So for me, getting to 2018, the verdict decriminalizing homosexuality was the key, the first step. Once you get to step one, then you think of step two. And the thing is, you have to go slowly, because you don't want to scare people off who your allies are. So now you have moral people saying this is not
approach. Like a war, it's a slow tactical approach. First I play this card, that's the way it is.
What you say, how you behave is so important now, because we're treading on thin ice here. We've got some sort of acceptance. Let's not mess it up. Let's not push it and say you want adoption. Let's look at the next thing, like legal rights. One of the things is inheritance. A lot of LGBT children lose out on inheritance. Okay, because a lot of arguments will be: you don't have progeny, you don't have offspring. Why do you need property? So other siblings might intervene and use that as an excuse. But then we've seen a lot of LGBT members lose out on property. So that is a burning issue: inheritance. And looking at how the families have to accept it, because you are saying, the concept, the mindset is you have to get married, have children, and then you qualify for a place in society.
That's called progress of life or stages of life. That's how they define it.
Then you're a man or a woman.
Yeah.
You have to get married and have children, and then society is at peace with you. They don't care what you're doing in your bedroom. You can
you're one amongst us.
So we have basically broken all those stereotypes. We are not getting married. We're not living with the opposite gender. We are vocal about who we are and staying the way we are. And so this will take time for them to accept that. And once that acceptance is there and in place, then you go to the next step and start asking for other rights. I think adoption is an issue across the board. Heterosexual couples can't adopt. They're finding it very difficult to adopt. So adoption has got so many issues as it is. So with LGBT couples coming in, it's a lot more scrutiny. It's a lot more effort that needs to be taken to see that the couple adopting the child has the capacity to look after the child. When it grows up, is definitely other children calling the child names because, oh, your parents are like this. Or, they're not the usual father-mother scenario. So this is something a lot of children abroad are facing because they've been brought up by LGBT community. members, and for them to get that child into school which is open and accepting. So all these are issues. So it's easy to jump and say, okay, let's just adopt and let's allow that to happen. But what about that child?
That's a
What
nice
are you going
point.
to put that child through? So for me, that is my concern. And I understand all my LGBT family and friends saying that, oh, it's so important that we want to feel completion like a parent and all that. I have lots of kids. For me, my community, the NGO that I run, these are all my children. This is my family.
With all due respect, I must say something which I'll always remember, which you said right now, is the fact that, this is selfless love. You're not just thinking about your right, your want, your desire. You're thinking about the child that you will adopt, what they will go through. I think that is such a fine point, such a sensitive point, such a forward-thinking point, and all heart, all respect to that.
That's the thing. I'm very surprised that people don't, for them, see, it's selfishness again. Like, I want to be a father, I want to be a mother, and then you just go ahead and just do everything to get that child. You're not looking at what that child is going to go through. Yeah. What is the life that you're going to give? You can give all the money, you can be extremely rich, give the child every luxury possible, but can you give that child peace of mind? Are you in a society, are you in an environment where the child can grow up like a normal individual without being harassed for who his or her parents are? Correct. That is my fear.
I think peace of mind and comfort is the most important aspect, and that's what you're looking after, which is a brilliant thing. Now, I can go on and on with you, but we have a last few minutes with you. I know that. Quickly, there are certain preconceived notions we see when we look at these movies, the Hindi movies, the Tamil movies, not pointing at creativity, but I think the way they project it is so not right. So there are certain myths and misconceptions that the common man or woman actually live with. Would you say, can you clarify some things that you think are, they projected that way, but hell no, it's far from being the truth.
See, because, we as an audience, the Indian audience, they blindly believe what they see on screen. Okay, exactly. To some extent, there's when the superhero comes and bashes 10 people single-handedly without any weapons, they believe and they'll be clapping and all that. So that's the mindset. So we have always been caricaturized on screen. There's never been a portrayal of an LGBT person in a very sensitive way. Very rarely you can come across films. I can handpick them. In Tamil, of course, a very commercial film that really was a shot in the arm for the transgender community was Kanchana by Raghava Lawrence, and he's an ally, a strong ally of the community. He's been amazing with coming forward and helping us. So that is one of, and he was very honest. He said my mindset changed after doing the film, because then he worked with the trans community, he met them, and then he realized all those negative stereotypes that they had, that they were obnoxious, they were rude, they were very sexually aggressive, they would attack you, they would, all that was dispelled. And he said, yes, there are people like that, but that's just a minority. It's like, I remember Sudha telling, somebody asking, it's really sad to see trans people begging on trains, right? So she turned around and said, do you say that to the men and women who are also begging on the trains? Do you feel very sad for heterosexuals because they're also begging on the trains? Just because one person is trans and she's begging on the train, you feel sorry for that person. Then feel sorry for heterosexuals too, because they're doing the same thing. We are not different.
Equality,
So these are the issues that you see them. You see them begging on sex. You have relegated them to the peripheral areas of society. Even in the city where they live, will be the worst areas that they will not get accommodation in a decent area, because they're seen in a certain way. That whole myth about their sexuality and the sexual prowess and what they do. They are we need people to change that perception. We need people, trans activists and what shall we say, the torchbearers for the community, to showcase the community in a different light and say that we can achieve, we are like anybody else, and that we're really handpicking our community members and highlighting them. So the press comes in and they write stories about how they have become successful.
Correct. But do you visualize with the future and the hope that you've seen so much of progress, do you visualize at one point of time in the parliament, whether it is in a corporate atmosphere, whether it's a sports team, you will actually get to see the participation of LGBT community equally in a corporate job in the IT company? Would you see equivalent or rightful participation?
See, everything will take time. I think what you have to take into mind is that it's fine to get somebody into an office space, but you have to prepare that office space, sensitize all the colleagues, everybody to accept that one trans person. Don't do tokenism. Here, this tokenism is like, oh, we want to reach out to a trans community. We want to give that one person a job. So we get that person inside. And then after some time, that's so uncomfortable working there that he or she leaves. So the first step is sensitize your staff, sensitize the work area that this individual is going to come in, and then give the people time. So I have done sessions where I've gone to corporates and spoken about getting LGBTQ into a workspace. And I said, these are the issues that you really need to do, because the first step is preparing the workplace for somebody who's not like them.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too much into the politics side of it, but do you think politicians during the election season, they're able to play their cards very wisely and use or manipulate emotions? Do you see that coming up? Let's be honest, because at that point of time, every politician is looking for votes from every single sector. They give you hopes, they give you ideas, and then suddenly after the vote is in the ballot, they've forgotten you. Is that the fact?
It's not. I don't think it's just the LGBT. I think they play those tricks on everybody. At the end of the day, they want votes, and at that time they sound very proactive and supportive, and they come forward. But there are genuine politicians. There are a lot of genuine politicians who come forward, and I say, for Tamil Nadu, I think as a state, we've done so much more than the rest of the country. I'm very proud of the fact that the government, Tamil Nadu state government, whichever political group, irrelevant, the government, the people of Tamil Nadu, the state has done amazing work. We've always stood as an example. So whenever I go abroad, or when I travel and I speak about the work that I've done, that's one thing I always give credit. Today, I will not be here able to talk and do the kind of work if it hadn't been for the people of Tamil Nadu and the government of Tamil Nadu supporting us and accepting us. So that is something that you have to give them credit for, allowing us to be. A lot of states still don't do that. Kerala has changed now. Kerala has become extremely proactive. They've taken a leaf out of our book and following suit. They're doing amazing work in Kerala. Tamil Nadu, Kerala, if Andhra and Karnataka are little, they are doing work, but I don't see that kind of work that's been achieved by both our states. North, I don't even want to comment because I can't. I don't know what is happening. So, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, you said people have accepted you. I think you've accepted us. At the end of it, it's a word of acceptance, and that's the only thing that is going to survive. When we love each other, we respect each other, we value each other for the values and for being themselves. I think that's the world of honesty, and that's what's required. So on that note, Sunil, with all humility, on this Pride Month, I thank you so much for your wonderful time, for your wonderful words, and the insight towards the outside and the within. Thank you very much, Sunil. Any parting words to the people of Chennai, or people of Kerala, and the world itself? Any parting words?
That's what I always say, live your truth, be your truth, live your truth. It is hard. They say truth is bitter, truth is hard to accept. But, time will heal, time will be on your side. And I think times are changing. Yeah. So definitely this is the way forward, so because step by step, I don't think you need to rush it. And there's a word of caution from my side. So don't rush into things. Don't expect everyone to suddenly embrace you and say, oh, wow, we are all for the LGBT community. We are all there for you and all that. It will take time. Like anything, every social norm that we break or we are different from, it takes time for people to understand and change their mindset. So that will take time. And we just have to be extremely patient, and I think be grateful, extremely grateful for where we are right now.
Yeah. I wish you, I wish us, I wish the world all the very best. Let everything change for the better. Let one thing not change, and that is Sunil Menon. Stay the way you are, because you've always been special. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Complete pleasure. All right. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, in this month of Pride, people have different ideas. But at the end, let's go back to where we started. Self-love. understanding who you are. Social media takes away the limelight. You're supposed to give yourself a different impression, give yourself a different avatar to the world. You don't need to do that. Be yourself. Find what you love, respect what you are, and the world will be a much better place. On that note, with all the rainbow colors, I wish everyone a lot of pride, a lot of self-love, and much more importantly, thank you for connecting on the Chennai Live digital format. My name is Rajiv. Give us a thumbs up, give us a follow on our Instagram and Facebook handle, Chennai Live 1048. My name is Rajiv. Like a lot of people in Chennai, I add life to Chennai. Goodbye and stay connected.